Hello everyone, I'm Claire, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to Holo Taco's newest release, their Magnetic Attraction Bundle. I'm not someone who gets PR from brands, and I don't buy every collection as soon as it comes out. I usually just pick up my favorites when there's a sale, and that means I can't do a swatch and review like other creators, but I still like to talk about new releases. So I'll be going through all the polishes, saying how I feel about them and whether they're going on my wish list, and then also talking about the collection as a whole, the vibes, the finishes, the color story, that kind of thing. And hopefully if you're on a low buy or a no buy, then seeing this approach to collections is helpful for you. So let's get into it. Holo Taco is a boutique nail polish brand founded by Christine from the Simply Nailogical YouTube channel. Their Magnetic Attraction Bundle is Valentine's Day themed, and it includes 5 full coverage magnetic polishes and 1 glitter topper. And launching alongside the bundle is a Holo Taco branded U-shaped magnet, which is the type of magnet that makes it easy to do the velvet style of magnetization. Holo Taco released their first magnetics for their 2022 holiday collection, and though there are some people who liked them, the general consensus was that they didn't magnetize super well. Since then, they've released a few magnetics here and there to more positive reviews, but it's been a few years since they've done this many at once, so I was interested to see what approach they would take. I think we've seen a lot of innovation with magnetics in the last couple years, whether that's complex, shifty multichromes, super finely milled pigment, or different methods of magnetizing, so I wouldn't say that Holo Taco is leading the charge, but they did some interesting things. Getting into the polishes, first up is Pretty Privilege. It's described as having a baby pink base, though I feel like it looks different on different people. On some people it's brighter, on some it's more muted, and then it has an icy silvery pink magnetic pigment and scattered holo. Simply mentioned during the launch livestream that this was kind of the anchor shade of the collection, and that makes sense. It's a classic colorway, lots of brands have a light pink magnetic, so it's not super unique, but it makes sense to include, especially in a Valentine's Day collection. I already have a pink magnetic that's a little similar to this, Velvet Rose from Mooncat. It's not exactly the same, but because light pinks aren't really my favorite, I don't need another variation. Next up is Polar Opposites, which has an aqua base, green to blue iridescent shimmer, and bluish silver magnetic pigment. I feel like this one is there for the people who aren't into the pink Valentine's vibes, but it's still really pretty. I do always enjoy when magnetics have an extra shimmer in them, and I like how shifty this one is. It seems to go from green to blue to indigo. But I don't think I'm going to get this one for a couple reasons. One is that aqua is not my favorite color. There are some exceptions, some aqua polishes that I like, but for the most part I'm just not that interested in this color. And the other reason is the silvery magnetic pigment. I know it's described as being a bit blue-toned, but it still looks pretty silvery, and that's another color that I don't enjoy as much. It's partly that I just prefer warmer metallics, and partly that it feels like silver is one of the defaults for magnetic pigment, so it's not that exciting to me. This one's not going on the wish list. Then we have Lust in Translation, which is one of the more interesting polishes to me formula-wise. It has a lilac base plus linear holo pigment and silver magnetic, and that combination of linear holo and magnetic isn't something you see very often. So I do like that. I love when brands do something interesting with linear holos, but the color of this one is just not doing it for me. When you take a light purple and add 2 different types of silver to it, because linear holo pigment at its core is silver and so is the magnetic they used in this polish, it just ends up so muted. I like purple, but I would rather have a richer or warmer shade and not the cool-toned icy version. I would love to see other iterations of a linear holo magnetic. I hope they do that in the future, but I don't want this one. Next up is Playing the Field, which is the most complex magnetic in this collection. It has a base magenta purple shimmer that seems to also shift to orange, and the magnetic aspect is an aqua teal purple multichrome. So the base is shifty, and the magnetic aspect is also shifty. This was the first polish I saw from this collection, simply put it in the thumbnail for a stream a couple weeks ago, so I was kind of expecting a full collection of these very shifty, complex magnetics like we've seen from Island P or Cleona. And I was mildly disappointed that this was the only one, because it's probably my favorite from the collection. I like when magnetics have a lot going on. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to pick this one up. The aqua shift of the magnetic isn't my favorite, so I might wait and see if they do other versions of multichrome magnetics. The last magnetic is Flirt Alert. It's another pink, but this time more of a hot raspberry pink base with a light pink magnetic shimmer and scattered holo. I do like hot pinks more than light pinks, but for some reason I'm not really that interested in this one. The color is nice, but I think it just doesn't have enough going on. I want a contrasting color or an extra shimmer or something. So it's not going on my wish list, but I am glad they made this more vibrant pink. They used to have a deeper pink magnetic called Love Spell that came out in the first magnetic collection, but it had to be discontinued because they couldn't get the pigments anymore. So now we have this new version of a pink magnetic that I definitely think is distinct enough, but still kind of fills that gap. And she painted Flirt Alert over black during the launch livestream, and I feel like that made it look more like Love Spell, just more cool toned. So if that's a polish you missed out on, now there's another option. And last we have the topper, Sweetheart Taco, which is 2 sizes of pink holographic hearts in a clear base. Holo Taco has been getting into these shaped toppers in the last year or so. They've done flowers and stars and diamonds, and they've all been pretty popular, so I'm not surprised to see another. This one is a little different in that it's only the shaped glitters. The other ones had some other smaller glitters in the background to give a little extra sparkle and kind of fill in the spaces on the nail between the big glitters. I don't think one way is necessarily better, it's just different options. I haven't been super interested in the shaped glitters. I'm not opposed to them in theory, but the specific shapes just haven't really spoken to me. Cutesy hearts aren't really my vibe. So I won't be getting Sweetheart Taco, but it is a fun polish. So yeah, those are the polishes. Overall, not a ton that I'm interested in, but I still think it's a good lineup. It does take a lot for me to want to get a magnetic polish because I just don't always want to deal with the extra effort that it takes to use them, even though they are cool. Holo Taco did also release their version of the U-shaped 30-pound pole magnet. Theirs is black with Holo Taco branding on it in white, and it's $23, which is around the price point that you can get something similar on Amazon, and cheaper than some other boutique brands. So it's a good option if you don't have one of these type of magnets yet, though it did sell out in like 5 minutes because they weren't able to get that much stock, and I think they also just didn't want to get too much because they didn't know what demand would be. It will be restocked though, it's not limited edition, so if you want it, you just have to be patient. Now to talk about the collection as a whole, I'll start with the color story. And seeing these polishes that are mainly pink, purple, and blue, plus some silver magnetic pigment, my first thought was Nail Daddy and how he sometimes complains in his reviews that Holo Taco is always doing pink, purple, and blue in their collections, and he thinks it would be nice to get something different. And I do agree that this isn't the most original color story, but I do think it works for the Valentine's theme. For Valentine's Day, the first colors I think of are pink and red, and then there are different ways you can complement those colors, different directions you can go. Like, I really enjoyed seeing swatches of Prism Parade's Valentine's collection this year that was kind of dark and vampy with some berry and purple colors. But Holo Taco went a bit more bright and cutesy and leaned on blue and aqua for an accent color for people who might not be interested in the pinks. Is it my favorite color story ever? No, but I think the direction they went is perfectly acceptable. And it's cohesive. There were definitely some Holo Taco collections last year that didn't feel cohesive to me, like Disco Cowboy or Bon Voyage. And I could see if some people think that certain polishes in this collection don't fit as well as others. I think Playing the Field stands out because it's so colorful, but at the same time it helps tie the other polishes together because it has all the colors. So overall, no real complaints when it comes to the color story. Now the finishes. Obviously, it's a magnetic collection aside from the topper, and I think some of us are getting a little magnetic fatigue. I feel like magnetics have been getting more and more popular throughout the time I've been in this hobby, partly thanks to whoever discovered that putting your nails in a heavy-duty horseshoe magnet is an easy way to get the velvet effect. And there have been other innovations too. Different indie makers have made different styles of magnet. Brands have gotten more creative with pigment combinations. Lately, people have been really into the glass bead style of magnetization. And so the boutique brands have been gradually catching up to the trends since they plan their releases pretty far in advance, and they've been putting out lots of magnetics in the last year plus. So I think some people are still really enjoying magnetic polishes, or they're just finally getting that U-shaped magnet after seeing what all the hype is about. but I personally could do without so many magnetic collections. Magnetics are very cool, and there are some that I really enjoy, but a lot of the time I would prefer to use a polish where I don't have to do anything special when I'm applying it. And to be clear, this isn't a criticism of Holo Taco, since it's not like they specifically have been doing a ton of magnetics, but the fact that we've seen so many across brands means that I'm less excited to see a full magnetic collection from Holo Taco. When it comes to their take on magnetics, though, I do feel like we got a good variety of styles, some with holo, some with extra shimmer. They all had something going on aside from just the magnetic pigment, which I do appreciate. My one complaint is that 3 of them had basically just silver magnetic. I know technically in some of them it was a blue-toned silver or a pink leaning silver, but it's hard to really tell the difference. And I'm not a fan of that. Like I said before, I don't like silver that much, and silver magnetic feels like the default. Not to mention that a polish with silver magnetic is probably easiest to recreate. That's because brands sell silver magnetic toppers. I have Holo Tacos, but there are other ones too, so it's not that difficult to get that effect over any type of base polish. But it's less common to see multi-chrome magnetic toppers or brightly colored magnetic toppers. Not saying they aren't out there, but I don't come across them as much. So I'm going to be more enticed by a magnetic polish that gives me something I can't get by layering polishes I already have. Christine mentioned on stream that she thinks silver magnetic pigment gives a stronger effect. It looks really bright and shiny. And I'm not saying she's wrong, but other colors can be really strong too, as long as the polish has enough magnetic pigment and there's enough contrast with the base color. I have polishes with orange or green magnetic pigment that stands out really well. So I hope that if we end up seeing more magnetics from Holo Taco, they'll experiment a bit more with other colors. And then the theme. It's Valentine's Day, pretty simple. So honestly, not much to say about this. It's Holo Taco's first Valentine's Day collection. They did kind of an anti-Valentine's Day release a couple years ago with the I Need Space collection, so this is new and original for them. I'm not someone who has strong feelings about Valentine's Day. When I was single, it might have caused a little angst, but since I've been in a relationship, it's just not a big deal. But I do think they did a good job with the polished names. They're fun and flirty, and some of them are also related to the magnetic formula, polar opposites playing the field, so that works. I have mentioned before that I think sometimes the theming for Holo Taco collections isn't as good when it's not something that Christine has a personal connection to, because the team does a good job regardless, but Christine's involvement kind of takes it to the next level. And this is a case where she's not a big fan of the holiday, but I think the fact that it's a magnetic collection kind of makes up for it. If it had just been plain creams, it might have been an issue, but since the polishes are more complex, she can be enthusiastic about the formulas, even if she doesn't care as much about the inspiration. So no complaints here. I don't really care about Valentine's Day, but it's a perfectly good Valentine's collection for people who are into that. Then there are just a couple other things I want to touch on. One is the marketing for this collection. Holo Taco tends to start teasing collections about a week before launch. They'll show a couple polishes each day on socials, so by the time the collection comes out, everything has been revealed. They used to be a lot more secretive, but they got the feedback that people wanted to know what they were getting before launch day, because especially for limited edition launches, ordering can feel kind of frantic, and you might not want to take the time to decide what you're getting day of, so it helps to know what you're planning to buy ahead of time. So they started showing more, but for basically the whole time that I've been following Holo Taco, those reveals mostly featured Christine's swatches. And people were like, okay, that's something, but what if we want to see how the polishes look on other skin tones? And this time they did show a couple clips of the polish on other people in the teasers leading up to launch day, so it's nice to see that they took that feedback, and hopefully it's something they do even more in the future. On a less positive note, there was some discourse surrounding this collection based on something Christine said during the launch stream. I didn't read the Reddit threads where people were talking about it, but there was some discussion in the Nicole Loves Nails Discord server that I saw. And what Christine said was basically along the lines of, can you really blame us for doing limited edition collections when those get so much more hype and sell better than permanent collections? We'll do more permanent collections if you go as hard for those. This collection was not limited in any way, but people do complain sometimes about the amount of limited edition stuff that Holo Taco does and how quickly it sells out. And on the one hand, you can understand that as a business, yeah, it makes sense to do limited edition collections when that's what sells the best. And now that Holo Taco has been around for years and people don't get hyped for every single release like they used to because there are just so many, limited releases are the best way to create that excitement. They could also just do fewer collections, but somehow I don't think that's going to happen. So it's understandable for Christine to have that perspective, but I think some people just felt like it should have been an inside thought. Like, she did not need to say directly to her customers, well, I would release more collections that don't cause FOMO, but you don't give me your money fast enough when I do that, so it just felt kind of weird for her to say that out loud, especially when early on she would complain about brands who lean into FOMO marketing and say that Holo Taco would just do limited edition sometimes when it's a collab or so they could do more complex polishes without having to worry about getting certain pigments consistently. And now she's being honest that they do limited edition because it influences people to go ahead and place an order rather than putting it off because they know the polishes will continue to be available. I'm not going to complain too much about getting honesty and transparency from a brand owner, but it feels a bit jarring to hear that now when it's different from past explanations. There was also a members only stream a few weeks ago where she was saying that she feels like as long as something limited edition stays around for a few hours, that should be enough time for people. Like in the case of the advent calendar, it's not like it sold out in a few minutes, so why are people complaining? They had plenty of time to order. And I'm just like, what if people are busy on launch day? What if they want to take the time to watch reviews? What if they want to compare the polishes to things they already own so they can make an informed decision about whether they really want the new thing? What if they're waiting for a paycheck to come in? She's just been sounding kind of out of touch lately, which I guess makes sense. The longer she owns a business, the more she's going to think like a business owner, and the less she'll fully understand the consumer perspective. Not ideal, but what can you do? But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the Holo Taco Magnetic Attraction Collection. It's available now, aside from the new magnet, which will be restocked eventually. Nothing is limited edition though, so you have time to think about whether or not you want any of it. I might get playing the field, but we'll see. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's watching till the end. Let me know in the comments how you feel about the Magnetic Attraction Collection, if you bought any of it, if you're planning to pick it up later, or if you're not interested. And if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you would leave me a like, or maybe even subscribe. Hyping videos is apparently also something you can do now. You could also follow me on Instagram, linked below. But thank you to everyone who has done any of that, and I'll see you next time. Bye!